What if the biggest thing holding science back is the idea that only the physical is real? So, physicalism itself utilizes the very cornerstones of things that it cannot justify, quantify, or empirically measure, but then turns around and says that the only things that are real are those things that can be justified, quantified, and empirically measured. Physicalism has helped us build rockets, but it's failed to explain consciousness. It's failed to explain qualia, the experience of red or pain or being. And some of the brightest minds in science are saying we've hit a wall. Donald Hoffman says that physical objects are not the building blocks of reality, but that conscious agents are.
We're misinterpreting the content of our perceptual experiences. There's something that exists when you don't look, but it's not space-time and physical objects.
If everything physical depends on something non-physical in order for it to exist, like circumstances or conditions or relation, then is physicalism describing reality, or is it just ignoring its own foundations?
Differential equations govern the behavior of all known physical systems, yet they describe no thing in themselves. Consider, this equation applies equally to a spring, an atom, a planet, or a probability wave. The identity of the system does not arise from its material constituents, but from the form of its relational structure. The stuff that instantiates the behavior is secondary. These equations delineate possibility spaces, the structured set of potential outcomes governed by initial conditions and constraints. Butterfield, 2011. Thus, possibility is ontologically prior to instantiation. The physical world is a realization of mathematical possibility, not the other way around. If the governing reality is defined by form and relation, then the material is epiphenomenal.
If I asked you to provide me with evidence for logic, that would be logically inconsistent, because it would require logic in order to validate the very things that are being presented as the evidence. Some regard logic as just a concept, that it's not real, and yet logic serves as the foundation for science. Science utilizes logic in order to provide some objective consistency. If logic isn't real, and it's arbitrary because it's just mind-dependent, how is it possible that it is identifying and useful for objective consistency? Something's missing. What's missing is the fact that the human mind is acknowledging a fundamental property of relation as logic, and that logic is simply objective because relation is so fundamental that it is the very element that makes anything and everything possible and consistent, objective, and therefore useful.
An axiom is, by definition, a starting truth, a foundational assumption that is accepted without proof within a given logical system. In mathematics, Peano's axioms serve this role for the natural numbers 0, 1, 2, 3. You can't prove an axiom within the system it defines because proofs require rules, and those rules come from the axioms themselves. It would be like trying to lift yourself up by your own shoelaces. You need an external point of leverage, and in logic, that point is the axiom. Mathematics, the very language in which modern physics is expressed, is built not on proofs, but on axioms. The Peano axioms are not proven. They are assumed to be true in order for arithmetic to function. All proofs built on them presuppose their validity. Therefore, at the root of every empirical, quantitative science lies unprovable, non-empirical assumptions.
So, should we just ignore the foundational principles that underlie the laws that we've come to recognize? Is it better to say, look, math works and it is extraordinarily consistent, but let's not explore why? Because there could be greater utility there? Nah, let's just continue to just calculate at the surface level and not worry about the fundamental level. Because maybe there's some greater utility available for it. No, that couldn't be. Let's just call it woo.